3 years ago, my wife Emily left me and our 8-year-old twins. After losing Emily, I was at rock bottom, drowned in grief. I had no motivation to do anything and lacked the confidence to protect my children without Emily around. There was someone who stood by us, me and my children. Without this person, I don't think I could have raised my children, but now that person has to leave my side. I still love Emily, and I should celebrate the happiness of this benefactor, yet I find myself deeply confused by my own feelings. During these times, it was an unexpected group of people who gave me the push I needed. My name is Liam. I'm a 35-year-old worker at a company that sells nursing care supplies. I live with my twin daughters, who are now 11 years old and in the 5th grade. Both are girls named Anna and Leah, who look a lot like Emily. Lately, they seem to be into romance comics and often say precocious things, but they are good kids who actively help out. Emily passed away in a traffic accident 3 years ago. Emily had left for her usual part-time job on the day of the accident. I had left for work earlier, and Emily had told me, "See you later," as she always did, but that was the last time I would hear her voice. By the time I rushed to the hospital, Emily had already passed away. I don't remember much right after Emily's death. Although I was in shock after suddenly losing Emily, I only thought about supporting the children. While I desperately arranged for the funeral and took care of the children, days seemed to pass by. I remember clearly that the children cried a lot. At the time, the children were in the 2nd grade. They were 8 years old. They were not of an age where they didn't understand anything. I think they understood that they were saying goodbye to their mother. I held the crying children as long as time permitted and tried to devote as much time as possible to them. I cooked, albeit far from matching Emily. My cooking wasn't very good, but the children ate it without complaint. I think they knew they could no longer eat their mother's cooking. I wanted to be as close to the children as possible, but I also had a job. Although I had some savings and the insurance had paid out, so we weren't short of money, I couldn't lose my job as a single parent. I gave it my all: work, household chores, and parenting. I didn't want my children to be financially crippled, but I also didn't want them to feel lonely. Such thoughts kept me going, but I think I reached my limit one day. 1 month right after Emily passed away, I fell. Unfortunately, at that time, I had no one whom I could easily ask for help. I grew up in a single-parent household, and my father was elderly, so I couldn't ask him to take care of the children. Emily's parents, my in-laws, were dealing with my mother-in-law's long-term illness, and my father-in-law was supporting her, so they couldn't take care of me or my children. Feeling dizzy and ill, I was still determined to push through because I was the only one my children had. It was at that time that Emily's younger sister, Molly, came to our aid. "I heard from Mom that you're not feeling well, Liam. I bought a bunch of things. I'll make dinner for the twins too," she said. Molly, Emily's sister, is 6 years younger than me and works as a tutor. She used to visit us often, talking with Emily and playing with my children. Emily adored her younger sister, and my children also loved her a lot. But after Emily's death, the only time I saw Molly was at the funeral. Actually, Molly had offered to help, saying, "I'll come and help," but I had turned her down. I was afraid of becoming dependent if I accepted help. I thought I had to do everything by myself because from now on, it would just be me. I feel dizzy from the fever, but I tried to refuse the help. "I'm fine. I can handle it. I think the fever will go down soon. Leave the kids to me," I said in a weak voice. Then Molly said, "No, rest. You need to rest. I'm worried not only about the twins but also about you." Her angry voice reminded me of Emily. Emily often scolded me like this. It felt oddly nostalgic. Then, I was taken to bed against my will. While I was asleep, Molly prepared meals for my kids and took care of chores like laundry. Molly had come in the evening, but when I woke up, it was already past 10 p.m. She had even helped the kids with their bath and prepared for their school the next day. My children were already asleep. "Molly, I'm sorry for everything." I felt helpless. "I have to keep going for Emily's sake." I sat dejectedly on the living room couch, but suddenly, I heard the sound of cooking from the kitchen. Turning towards the kitchen, I saw Molly. Back to me, perhaps reaching for a plate, she was wearing Emily's apron. Watching Molly in the kitchen, tears started rolling down my cheeks. Perhaps it was because I was reminded once again that Emily would never be in the kitchen again. Once the tears started, they didn't stop. Thinking about it, I hadn't cried at the wake or the funeral because the children were present. I couldn't cry. This was the first time I cried since I lost Emily. I let my tears flow for a while, and when I calmed down a bit, Molly asked me to move from the couch to the dining table. When I sat down, Molly placed a steaming bowl of chicken soup in front of me. "Here you go," prompted by Molly's voice. I clasped my hands together and said, "Thank you." This was the first time I was eating a meal cooked just for me since I lost Emily. It's delicious. Ever since I lost Emily, I had lost the taste for anything I ate, but this chicken soup was delicious. As I ate, Molly casually picked up a photo from the living room. It was a photo from when we all went to Disneyland, a picture of the kids happily playing. "You've been pushing yourself too hard, haven't you?" Molly, still holding the photo, looked at me with kind eyes and said, "The kids are a handful with work and chores. You're overdoing it." I couldn't respond to her valid point. "Am I not doing well enough, Molly?" "Disagree with me. The exact opposite. You're trying too hard. The kids told me before bed, Dad is always working so hard, but they said you looked very tired." Hearing that, I covered my face with my hands. I had made the children I should be protecting. "Worry. I'll help you. I live nearby. Let me help protect the kids with you." But Molly, you have work too, right?" "I don't want to take up your valuable time." "For our family, we'll be fine." When I said that, Molly sat down across from me. "When Emily passed away, did that mean she was no longer part of your family?" "Absolutely not. Emily will always be a part of my family, a very important part of mine and the children's family." Molly nodded with a smile. "I'm glad. That's right. Then my relationship with you all hasn't changed either. Just because Emily's gone doesn't mean we say goodbye. The people who were important to Emily are also important to me." With tears in my eyes, I lowered my head. "Thank you, really thank you." Feeling guilty, I also felt a profound sense of relief. It felt assuring to know that I could depend on someone else, someone who would protect my children along with me. "No need for you to do everything on your own. I am here." Molly has been coming to our house every 2 or 3 days, and even after 3 years, Molly has been helping our family without fail. Although she comes over less frequently now, on off days, we often go out together. Just me, the kids, and Molly to the kids. She might feel like a much older sister. I enjoyed the relationship I had with Molly and hoped that this lifestyle would continue. However, I was soon made to realize that was wishful thinking by my aunt's words. "There's a good marriage proposal for Molly. Why don't you meet him?" The aunt was my father's sister. She would come to visit our house about once every few months with various gifts. Usually, she brings candies the kids liked, but that day she brought a marriage proposal for Molly. It seemed that even Molly was hearing it for the first time and looked surprised. "No, no, I can't possibly go for an arranged date." When Molly hesitantly said this, my aunt seemed to get a little annoyed. "What are you saying? You're already 29, aren't you? If you keep looking after Lime and the kids, you'll miss your chance to get married. The kids have gotten used to living as a trio, and they probably don't need you to help them out anymore, right?" I panicked. I still wanted Molly to help out at our place. It wasn't even about the housework. I just didn't want to lose the time spent with my kids and Molly. But as I was about to say that, a picture of Emily, my deceased wife, caught my eye. It made me realize something, that I felt happy spending time with another woman in the absence of Emily. Once I realized that, I felt guilty towards Emily. I could also understand what my aunt was saying. Molly was still 29. If a good opportunity comes along, she should date and perhaps start a family. If she keeps coming to our place, I'd be restricting Molly's possibilities. So I forced a smile and said, "Molly, don't worry about us. Why don't you go for the arranged date? You might meet someone nice." But Molly was still hesitant. My aunt pushed forward the conversation almost forcefully. "It's settled. I'll get in touch with you about the schedule." Molly was not eager, but after being persuaded strongly by me and my aunt, she seemed to have decided to give the arranged date a try. "All right, I'll give it a shot." Hearing Molly's reply, my heart itched a bit, but I pretended not to notice. My aunt has always been proactive. Molly's arranged date was set for 2 weeks later. On the day of the arranged date, I was feeling anxious in the living room of my house despite having to center myself. I couldn't help but wonder what kind of man Molly was meeting and what they were talking about. I couldn't sit still thinking about it. The ones looking at me with cold eyes were my kids who were reading romance comics sprawled out on the sofa. Dad, stop pacing around, get a hold of yourself. I was taken aback by my daughter's reprimand. Not because I was scared, but because she was just like Emily. Mom always used to say, didn't she? Falling in love is a wonderful thing. You shouldn't lie to your own feelings. Dad, aren't you lying to yourself? I was flustered by the words of my daughters Anna and Leah. What are you talking about? I'm not doing anything like that. I noticed my voice sounded pitiful and small. The girls put down the romance comic books they were holding and faced me. We're in 5th grade, you know. We're not little kids anymore. We understand. You like Molly, don't you? What? What are you girls? I was incredibly embarrassed talking about love with my daughters, but they seemed exasperated by my reaction. Stop treating us like kids. Some of us even have boyfriends, you know. We can talk about this stuff. Don't be so shy. I was speechless, surprised by how precious these modern elementary school kids were. Are you worried about us? Our mom is. Well, just our mom. But we love Molly. She's been there for us when we were sad or happy. Molly can't be our mom, but we think we could make a great family with her. Listening to their conversation, I was oddly moved. I thought they were just sloppy kids who liked romance comics, but to think they had grown up enough to say such mature things. I stroked their heads, but they recoiled from my touch as if trying to escape. We told you, stop treating us like kids. I looked at my own hand hanging awkwardly in midair and gave a rueful smile. But Dad, you should go. Your crush might get taken by someone else. Anna chimed in. That's right, we can stay home alone for a while, Pay. You don't need to rush home. Take your time on your date, Leah added. I glanced briefly at Emily's portrait, remembering her smiling face. She was always the type of person who would scold me when I was being pitiful and push me forward. The kids seemed to have taken after their strong-willed mother. They say kids grow up fast, and I guess that was exactly the case. And so, pushed forward by my kids, I rushed off to the matchmaking event. During the entire conversation with my kids, one woman kept coming to mind. It was Molly. She'd made me porridge, rushed to the kids' school events, made lunches for sports day, even sewed costumes for the school performances. Molly, I wanted her to continue to be there. There was no one else at the matchmaking venue but Molly. When she saw me, her eyes went wide. Liam, Molly, where's your date? Molly gave a self-deprecating laugh. I told him I had someone I liked and ended it early. Wait, let me say it. I cut Molly off. I'd been dependent on her all this time, playing ignorant while knowing our feelings for each other. Scared to face her. If I kept being so pitiful, I'd get scolded by my kids again, and by Emily too. I had to be the one to talk to. Molly, I love you. Molly looked at me, her eyes on the brink of tears. Is that as a sister-in-law? I met Molly's gaze, seeing the tears in her eyes. I understood. I'd made her wait because of my cowardice. As a woman, I'm sorry for making you wait. It was pitiful. The kids scolded me. They said they think we could make a great family. I think I feel the same. Please stay with us. Dear family. I'd fallen in love with you too, but there was a part of me that felt guilty. As if I was stealing the happiness that should have been my sister's. As if I was taking something that should have been hers. At that moment, I remembered Emily. During her lifetime, it was when our family and Molly went camping together. Watching Molly playing with the kids, Emily had said something. I've come to know the joy of being a part of a family. I hope someday a man will appear who will protect my little sister. And if my sister and the man she loves become part of our family, I think I would be happier than anything else. Now, I believe Emily must be watching over us with a smile. I chose the person because she was the one who wanted me, my children, and my precious sister to be happy first. When I told Molly about this, she laughed through her tears and nodded in agreement. Molly knows Emily's kindness just as well. Shall we head home? I held Molly's hand as we headed home to where the children were. A few months later, Molly and I got married. Our dating period was short. We had been like family to me, so we didn't need a lengthy dating period. When we told the children we were marrying, they said, "If you make Molly cry, we won't forgive you." Molly has always been like a sister to us, but now she's family. Even if you two fight, we'll always side with Molly. Hearing these words seemed to put Molly at ease. It seemed she had been anxious about whether they would accept her marrying me. I felt the same joy. I wanted to make Molly happy, and I was grateful to realize that my children felt the same way. Time passed, and then came our first wedding anniversary. Molly gave me and the children presents. "Thank you, can we open them?" Of course, open them all together. Molly told us to do so with sparkling eyes. So my children and I opened the presents all at once. Mine looked like a letter, a travel voucher perhaps. But when I opened it, there was an ultrasound photo inside. Is this? I was in complete shock. Then it seems Anna and Leah had opened their presents as well, and they let out a loud exclamation. "These are baby clothes." "Wait, a baby?" In Anna and Leah's hands were a baby's outfit and a bib. Both the children and I were surprised and turned to look at Molly. Molly smiled softly, touched her belly, and said, "Our family will soon be growing." The children, who had been annoyingly clamoring for a younger sibling, were overjoyed. Without even knowing the baby's gender, they were already thinking about names. Watching the two of them, I gently touched Molly's belly. "Molly, thank you so much." Molly then leaned into me and shared a fact. "The due date is August 10th. At that moment, I thought of Emily. August 10th was our wedding anniversary with Emily. "I think our sister is watching over this child." I nodded repeatedly to Molly's words. "I still miss Emily, but I want to keep building happiness with my family. I believe this will make Emily smile too, who is up in the sky." What did you think? Subscribing to our channel will motivate us to create more content. See you in the next video.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.